lot of people have been talking about this, and I'm just going to be real. The announcement that Xbox is canceling Contraband is one of the least surprising announcements. I'm going to be completely honest. I kind of thought they already did. So when I saw this news, I thought it was an old story initially, but then it's like, oh no, it's real. Because they revealed this game 4 years ago. Okay, 4 years ago. And does anybody know anything about it? It's from Avalanche. Not the Avalanche making Harry Potter. That's a different Avalanche Studios in Utah. But they showed off like a quick sizzle reel of some really, really basic like outlines of location of the private storage, Sun River's job, fireproof safe, and then like some access points. Okay. So it's like a heist game, it seems. But they showcased all of this, and then it had this big reveal of the name of it. Pans up to the chest. Ooh, Contraband. What? Crazy. And they've shut it down. It's gone. It's dead. It's gone. And this was initially put out by Jason Schreier. He reported on it on Blue Sky. But basically how it was described officially was as a co-op smuggler's paradise set in the fictional world. I was about to say the fictional world of the 1970s. A fictional world within the 1970s. The announcement trailer used Steely Dan's Do It Again, which debuted in the early 70s, which is why I didn't play the audio. Otherwise, this would get struck. There continues to be open positions posted on the company's website for the game, but it's possible they be removed in due time. The same could be true for the official Contraband pages on Xbox and Avalanche's website, which are still live as of right now. And of course, this seems to be like an additional thing happening after the initial wave of layoffs. So this wasn't necessarily just meeting the deadline, meeting the like threshold for 9,000 employees total across the company. It seems like this was a separate thing that was done in addition to everything else they wanted to do. And it's unfortunate. This is from the same team that did Just Cause, and I love the Just Cause games. They are popcorn poppin' blockbuster games. Like, they're stupid and silly, but they could be pretty fun. But yeah, they've shut it down. The initial reporting was that it was put on hold, but later they came out and were like, yep, it's over. It's over. I didn't know this one. Apparently, so yeah, the 2020 Xbox Showcase Fable, State of Decay 3, not out. Everwild canceled. Avowed, reboot, downscaled, flopped. I don't think it flopped technically. My understanding is that they were pretty happy with the results, but it was rebooted from a multiplayer game and downscaled. Perfect Dark canceled. Hellblade 2 flop. I do think that is fair to say. That game I think was a disappointment across the board. It's coming out on PlayStation soon though. That is interesting. Halo, yeah, that whole thing has been a mess. Forza Motorsport flop. 50% of the studio is gone. Contraband canceled. Yeah, a lot of their stuff that they showed was canceled. I didn't realize though, also, apparently this was one that SBI also was very, very proud to announce that they were working on. If that is true, that's funny. But yeah, they were working on this for ages. This was posted July 3rd. This is funny. All this talk about Contraband being canceled. Again, this is before it was canceled. But based on their LinkedIn page about 5 days ago, there was a job listing for senior producer live operations. So they were still hiring people very, very recently. My guess as to what happened, it sounds like this game was basically Fair Game $, but in the 1970s. And honestly, like heist-based sort of semi-extraction shooters, they're just really high risk, potentially high reward. They're really expensive to make. And I think they probably were just like, why risk it, dude? Like, why risk all of this? Especially if they're doing reviews of the game and they're not like super happy with the state of it. The official post from Jason Schreier himself said, Xbox is canceling Contraband, announced in 2021 from Avalanche, Just Cause Studio. After 4 years of radio silence, sources tell Bloomberg News, this news arrives after weeks of mass layoffs in which Xbox canceled several other big titles. OD, the collaboration between Xbox and Hideo Kojima, still in development, a Microsoft spokesperson tells me. For now, yeah. I think it's likely it stays in development because I think that's a big enough and like very visible enough IP, or not IP, but project that I think they'd want lock that down. But Contraband, like there's one person that was talking about it before it was canceled. Okay. Like, let's not pretend as though this was like some hotly anticipated game. I think we had all forgotten it existed until it was announced that it was canceled. Maybe that's mean of me, but I'm just being real with you. I don't think anybody remembered that this thing existed. At that point, like, you've been working on it for 4 or 5 years. If you're like, hey, if we re-announce it and put it out there, and it's just another game to sacrifice at the altar of live service, like, is it really worth doing? I don't think it's... I understand some cancellations are heartbreaking, but let's be real. Let's be real. This one was kind of expected. I think a lot of us thought that it had already happened and just wasn't made public yet. And, you know... They don't tend to cancel really good games. They tend to cancel stuff they don't think they can make any money with. And that is just the reality of the situation. Like, if they look at something and they think that they can make 10 million, 50 million, $100 million on it, they'll put it out there just to try and make it. People often think, well, it's just to write it off on their taxes. I think there's a misunderstanding on how write-offs work. Write-offs do not, it's not a 1-to-1, okay? If you write off $100 on your taxes, it doesn't mean that now you saved $100. It means that the cost of what you're writing off is discounted at your tax rate or the company's tax rate. So if I buy like $100 thing, but I write it off on the business, I still paid for it. I just was able to write off like my tax rate's worth of that purchase. So it effectively was discounted at my tax rate. So I paid like $70 for it or $65 for it or whatever it would be. It's not like a 1-to-1. A company would much rather have a game that made 50 million than that they have to write off $200 million on it. If they're writing it off and shutting it down, it's because they don't think it's going to make any money. Okay. Like, there are some exceptions. There's a strategy you can do in finance called tax loss harvesting. Funnily enough, I just had a talk with one of the people I work with on investments and stuff. And we were talking about setting up part of my portfolio as a tax loss harvesting portfolio. It's something you can do to basically farm losses in order to offset gains made elsewhere. It's something like if a stock is very cyclically going down and then back up, like it drops before dividends are released and then it goes back up as normal, and it's a very regular thing, you can kind of do something where you buy it right before it dips, you sell so it looks like you lost a ton, and then you repurchase it at the bottom. So you get the profit as it goes back up, but for this tax year, you can use that loss to offset income made elsewhere or capital gains made elsewhere. It's a really advanced thing. You still end up paying all the taxes anyways, but like there's some strategies you can do with that in the corporate finance world. But I think, again, like the most likely explanation for this is that it just wasn't looking very good and they decided to cancel it. I think that that's most likely what happened. Like, I think that they really just looked at it like nobody cares about this game, and it's another live service sort of semi-extraction heist-based game, and we all know how Payday 3 went. Like, it's just, this isn't the next big thing, and so let's pull money from this, let's put it elsewhere and move on. And I don't think they're wrong for doing that. You know, a lot of these games that release and are just disastrous live service titles, we always joke, like, how on earth do these things get to release? Like, how do they get to release? How did no one stop this along the way and say, hey, this is not, we shouldn't be doing this? But this is them taking the steps to try and prevent another disastrous live service launch that loses tons of money and is a massive flop. They're just shutting it down early. And so, you know, it seems like they're learning, they're correcting the course and trying to redirect money elsewhere. And fundamentally, like, if you're going to spend $100 million on a game that has a 2% chance of profitability, it just doesn't make sense. Even if you've already spent 70 million on it, you can cut it off now, count your losses, just deal with it. Don't spend the extra 30 and just move on. And I think that's what they're doing at this point, is they're just like, the odds of it doing well are so hilariously minuscule. it's just not worth the risk, especially when we can put this money into another remake or remaster or PS5 port or something that's going to make a lot of money. You know, ultimately it is a business. Like, yeah, video games can be artistic and pieces of art, and I think they are. That's why I love it. But I think the business itself is about making money. And if you have something like this that had all of a 1% chance of success, I just don't think it's going to do well. A co-op, open world, camera pans, co-op, open world. Okay. Contraband. Okay. Well, so it's gone now. It's too bad. 4 years of development time down the toilet. It's being shut down and they're moving on from it. Absolutely crazy. Like, look at some of these comments, though. Look at some of these comments. Had to refresh my memory on what was just canceled 4 years ago. This song better be in the game when I'm driving. IGN calls trailer teasers and teasers trailers. Open world heist game sounds very interesting. Okay. Never thought I'd hear Steely Dan in a video game trailer. Here it goes. Here before it gets canceled a month ago. Dude was a genius. They had me with Steely Dan. Wow, this seems interesting. I can't wait for its completion and not cancellation. A day ago. Rockstar should reinvent LA Noire modern detective game with much more complex scenes. Not really that relevant, but okay. So my guess is it's an open world heist or treasure hunting artifacts game set in the 70s. Probably. I don't know, man. And it's gone. Yeah. So just, another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. I told you guys after the last round of layoffs, I was like, oh, they're not done with cancellations and restructurings. This is just like a normal day. This is just what they're doing. So buckle up. There's going to be more. And even after this, mark my words, there will be more. There will be layoffs, restructurings, canceled projects that they're working on. It's just going to keep happening. So buckle up. Buckle up. He took my thing.